All right. Well, I'm here with Liz, and we're going to think of the children today. But first, um, Men's Health, a magazine I often see articles from. I always thought it looked pretty bogus. Men's Health is even more bogus than it used to be. They fired their entire editorial staff and replaced it with AI. So the articles are written by AI, and apparently this is, they claimed they were going to have people vet it and make sure it was okay. But there's an article in Futurism explaining what a disaster it was. Sports Illustrated, Men's Journal, apparently made by the same people. And so they put out something about where men should take testosterone, which I know, I hear men talk about this. From what I hear, it's a really bad idea. And it's just full of false medical information. They had to have like 10 or 20 corrections when accused by the magazine, and they made some corrections and admitted they made them, and then they made a bunch more and changed the article and didn't admit they'd changed it and still don't have it right. So this is, I think the bloom is coming off the rose really fast with this ChatGPT type AI. All it's doing is like what a student would do when they put off their term paper until the last minute, where they just Google 5 articles and copy and paste random paragraphs from it to make some crap that looks about halfway right. And
Yeah.
that's what it is. It's not remotely like it understood the question and gave you an intelligent answer. Anyway, but let's go on to saving the children in Utah. That's yours, Liz.
Well, what could go wrong? When we talk about sweeping legislation to protect the children. Well, a lot. So Utah, there's a bill in the Utah legislature right now that is it's numbered SB 152, and it would require parents to provide their government issued ID and physical address in order for their kid to access social media, which is problematic for a number of reasons, but it doesn't stop there. So also any kind of social media that the student uses is going to be included, but also stuff like YouTube. So that's a little concerning. And then they have decided they take it a step further than that and went full on fascist China with it, and would ban minors from being online from 10:30 at night to 6:30 in the morning. So
And something about this bothers you.
yeah, I mean, for some reason, I think this is a terrible idea.
Well, I did it first, and then I realized I've recently been reading the other side of it. I put that link here to this article from this John Haidt guy who has got really strong evidence that social media is really bad for teenagers and kids.
Well, I don't know how strong it is, but
well, his evidence is that around 2012, the rate of self-harm, reported depression, suicide, hospitalizations for self-inflicted injury has greatly gone up. And so and it's worse among girls and worse among teenagers in 10 to 14. So his argument, I mean, the conclusion it suggests is that we should really regulate social media like alcohol and tobacco. You have to be an adult to use it. And I wonder if that's true.
There's been a lot of conversation around that lately, that, folks have been saying that 13's too young. And I think there's some truth to that. We saw that with sort of the Instagram phenomenon, but there's another side to this.
Mm-hmm.
And especially, one thing that I haven't read this whole piece because it's really long, but I read some of it this morning. And one thing that was noticeable to me too was that in some of the data, one of the stats was it was figure 3 in the article, where they were talking about the percentage of U.S. undergraduates diagnosed with a mental illness, and it plots out on a graph anxiety, depression, ADHD, bipolar, anorexia, and a couple other things. And what's interesting to note is there's not ton of change in everything except for anxiety and depression, which starts around 2012. And as we know, correlation doesn't necessarily imply causation. And I think part of this, a significant part of this, that it could be attributable to the fact that the world has really gone to shit in a lot of ways since that time. These kids who've been coming up since then, have had to face a lot more in terms of kind of hopeless global threats. I mean, nuclear war, the threat of nuclear war, wasn't really much of a concern for a good stretch of time for folks in this age group until the last few years. And I think one thing I noticed that was interesting about this is that the anorexia was one of the values that didn't grow precipitously. And you would think, with a lot of the data that we know about the Instagram effect, that that might be one of the mental illnesses that would experience a large upward trend. And so I'm not, I think I can see both sides of this. And I think one issue in greatly restricting student or minors' access to the internet and requiring all of these measures like name and address, and government ID, I think that can backfire, as we've seen. Systems designed to collect this data aren't always maintained in the most secure fashion. Yeah. I can also see it being an issue, say in an abuse or a trafficking situation, because sometimes that is the internet's the only kind of lifeline kids have to seek out any kind of support, or to be able to connect with supportive peers, or to be able to get help. And it's concerning to know that may be that avenue could be cut off for kids in that situation.
Well, yeah, that's a good point. Another thing that occurs to me is that this is totally un-American. I mean, America, we won't even stop people from buying guns, even when they're shooting up the schools and everything. We are the land where everybody gets to do every stupid, crazy, counterproductive thing. We got people taking drugs on the street and everything. And all that freedom results in all this chaos and harm, but also all this creativity and stuff. So, I mean, making everyone stick to the old conservative values and not experiment with dangerous new things is not the American way.
Right. And it's just so out of touch, because the other thing is, yeah, sleep is important, but what high school kid has not stayed up past 10:30 working on a report or a school project? And most kids have. And I think that's, honestly, I think that's okay. It prepares them for college, where it's going to happen. It's going to happen there, to a limited extent. It's okay. Well, but I think it's the people who wrote this are really out of touch, because students don't go to the library and check out reference materials to write papers anymore. I mean, I asked.
No, they write them on ChatGPT.
Yeah, exactly. But I asked a room full of high school students that I was teaching like 7 years ago. I asked, how many of you have ever had to write a paper using only library materials, no internet? And a couple kids raised their hand out of this whole classroom, and one said, we had to do it one time and it was really hard. I'm so glad it was only one time. I hope I never have to do anything like that again. And I mean, that's the reality of the situation. I think it's important to learn how to use a library. I think it's a great and important skill to learn how to get information without the internet. But the reality of today's world is that students need that for school.
Well, I defer to you, because I know nothing about kids. I didn't understand kids when I was one, and I never understood them any better. I moved to where I could teach adults.
Yeah, I mean, and I do too. So I guess I don't know what the current state of affairs is, but if that was the case 7 years ago, I don't imagine that it's changed a whole lot. I don't think these kids are learning the Dewey Decimal System today, but that's conjecture on my part.
All right. Well, anyway, I realized I've got the fascist side again. So there's Platformer has a big article about the latest disaster at Elon Musk at Twitter. And what Elon Musk and their position is that Elon Musk is just a Donald Trump type selfish egomaniac that thinks only about himself, because Elon Musk met and he said, all right, we need to have a better measure of views. If I just look at like retweets and likes, there aren't very many. So let's just have a measure of how many people actually viewed a tweet. And I don't know how they're going to do that, but just viewing it. How do you tell? It just mean if the web browser loaded that page, you're going to say I viewed the tweet, I guess.
I think so.
Yeah.
It's
Anyway,
like how many times it was served as a resource.
like an ad. So he wants that.
Yeah.
And then he says, I've got 100 million followers, and this view count says only 10,000 people view my tweet. And he said, that's insane. And someone says, well, because if you look at your Google searches, your popularity has declined to like 10% of what it was a year ago. So that's normal. And he said, you're fired on the spot. Just go to hell. And people said, we're afraid to tell him the truth because we'll get fired. But it realized, again, just like the last article, thinking about it, I think he's right. His point is, obviously, if I have 100 million followers, you can't tell me only 10,000 impressions were made of that tweet. Your metrics are wrong. And of course, the point is he's desperately trying to find a metric that will bring the advertisers back in. He says, I can't possibly tell an advertiser that more people are going to see their ad than see my tweets when I'm followed by 100 million people. So I'm clearly a logical test case, and you have to come up with a way to make a number. If I have 100 million followers, that's like 10 million. So I can tell them that. So don't tell me that number is 10,000. I'll fire you. You need to make a number that's 10 million so I can tell that to the advertisers. And logically, he's probably right. Anyway, they have a lot more articles. They say everybody at Twitter is applying to other jobs. That's all they talk about. Their morale is at zero. They don't even bother talking about anything. And whenever they talk to Elon Musk, they say, I don't even think about what's true anymore. I just think about what's the answer that is least likely to get me fired on the spot. So it's just a terrifying place of miserable people clinging until they can manage to find some way to escape.
What could possibly go wrong? I mean, that seems like a recipe for excellent corporate outcomes to me.
Well, it did go down last week for a while because he turned off the APIs to block third-party clients, and he also accidentally blocked their official services, which used those same APIs. So this keeps happening because he's fired everybody that understands the systems, and he's in a lot of trouble. He's not obeying the FTC orders, and he's not obeying GDPR orders, not paying the rent.
I mean, wouldn't it be doesn't it? It makes me wonder if turning off the APIs, isn't that going to further reduce your reach?
I know if you want to advertise, that's why. But I think. But this, by the way, I don't know why I'm defending Musk, but I understand him a bit. He said this when he started. He said, we're going to make a lot of stupid mistakes over the next few months, but I'm going to fix this ship. He's trying to make it profitable. He's like Captain Ahab. I remember. I think it was Captain Ahab or Mutiny on the Bounty, the captain that was a horrible tyrant. Everybody hated him until they had a mutiny. And then they threw him and like 10 people in a lifeboat with no supplies. And he got them home because he was a horrible tyrant, but he knew how to do this. And Elon Musk's argument is that, yes, I'm going to terrorize everyone, make everyone miserable, break everything, and create howling chaos. But that's what this company needs to shake it up. And I don't know. We'll see. That's the argument, is that after all this nonsense, out will emerge SpaceX. And we're going to see.
Maybe. I mean, it's quite the gamble to take, but.
Yeah, well, he gambled $45 billion on it. Anyway, all right. And so now you've got more AI, Microsoft's AI in all its glory.
Yeah, this is so lame. This AI has like morals and stuff. It's he's puritanically wagging its finger at you. So somebody tried the new Bing, which I guess new Bing is Microsoft's search.
It's OpenGPT. They bought OpenGPT, yes. I think.
Yeah. Well, they this writer from Business Insider attempted to get this utility to write a cover letter for a job, but it refused to do it. It said it would be unethical and it would be unfair to the other applicants. And I'm like, what kind of lame crap is this?
Well, people tried this before. If you ask OpenGPT to write malware, it will refuse. And if you ask it to tell you how to make a bomb, it'll refuse. You have to phrase the questions a little more indirectly to trick it into doing these things. They have tried to stop it from doing obviously horrible things.
Well, that's no fun.
Well,
What good is AI if you can't use it to do horrible things?
well, you can, of course. It's just a little bit of a hacking challenge to get around the filter.
Well, or you just have to have lots and lots of money or be the police.
Well, of course, that too. All right. Anyway, another thing you can't do at Twitter is you can't delete your DMs. Now, this has always been the case. I noticed it when I deleted my stuff. And even the delete functions, they've never explained what they do, but apparently none of them actually delete the DMs from the server. All they do is hide it from you. So, and by the way, I think the same thing's true of Facebook. It's essentially impossible to ever get your data off the platform. But anyway, this is in violation of GDPR. GDPR, one of the many regulations is you are allowed to ask a company to delete their data about you, and they really have to do it. And Elon Musk is totally ignoring those requests too. People in Europe are demanding stuff to be deleted, and they're getting no answers at all from Twitter, which is what almost everybody is. And of course, I guess once again, I'll support Elon Musk. He says, we're going broke. I'm just going to take a blame country. So everybody bothering me with trivial stuff like paying the rent and obeying the law can just go to hell, because I'm probably just going to shut the whole shop anyway. So for the time being, I'll ignore all these pesky people with their irritating legal requirements and say, suppose I just shut the whole place down. That'll satisfy your legal requirements, huh? Anyway, but that's where it is. And so anyway, you got something about carriers cheating people.
Yeah, shocking, right? ISPs aren't necessarily honest with the FCC or consumers about where coverage is offered.
T-Mobile and Verizon, there have been so many lawsuits, them and
Oh,
Comcast.
yeah, Comcast, and one that isn't mentioned here, I have personal experience with, by the name of American Telephone and Telegraph Company, who said there was fiber
When
where
I was a
and
kid,
there is not.
I saw Ghostbusters, and they robbed the telephone company, and all the people waiting in line cheered. And I asked my parents, why does everybody hate the telephone company? Aren't they a good company providing a valuable service? And they said, you'll find out, kid.
Yeah, well, they lied, and they lied to the FCC, saying that they service areas that they don't. There's a map that's maintained that's supposed to show where service infrastructure is. It's all lies, and this happened to me. This has happened to me more than once, with more than one move. But and it's unfortunate because these companies get federal money to build out infrastructure. They've gotten lots and lots and lots of our tax dollars, and they're telling the government, oh yeah, we built all this stuff that we got money from you for, but it's not really there, and it hurts consumers because then they are checked off on the list as, yeah, we serve this household with high speed internet, they're fine. Don't need any competitors here.
Yeah.
Yet folks in those areas cannot get service.
Yep. And they've also for years been doing slamming and cramming, where they just turn on services you didn't ask for and bill you for it, and move you to another carrier without asking you.
And ditto with cellular coverage maps. They'll have maps covering large areas where nothing works. I have a friend going through this in Ukiah right now, where the area that she's in shows full robust coverage on all of the maps, and nothing works.
Yeah. And it seems to be intractable, because as now they're talking about breaking up Google and Facebook with antitrust. The last company broken up by antitrust was the telephone company for this reason, and breaking up didn't seem to do any good.
No, and it's crazy. Again, I live less than 30 minutes from San Francisco, downtown San Francisco. Verizon subscribers cannot use their phones at my house. There is no
Yeah.
fiber at my house. I mean, it's crazy. It's not like this is the middle of nowhere. And
Yeah.
folks who are in the middle of nowhere are often really and truly screwed because uh,
Well, but
they
you know,
can't
the
get anything.
solution is Elon Musk, the solution to everything, Starlink. But that doesn't seem to work either.
Well, yeah, yeah, it depends on where you are and what you're using. But then, it's very strange. I believe I mentioned this before. Um, my folks are in the middle of nowhere in the rural Midwest. They have fiber. They got fiber before I did. In sitting here on the edge of Silicon Valley.
Yep.
Folks in far flung corners of Utah, ironically enough, have fiber because there was a great investment in infrastructure there. But it's there are a lot of vagaries to the system. Can't really predict with any degree of accuracy what's correct. I mean, I called the company before I moved to my current spot and said, hey, do you offer fiber at this address? And they said, oh yeah, we offer fiber. Here are the plans you can get. And I said, great. And then
Right.
I got here and there was no fiber. So turns out they're doing that to a whole lot of people all over the country.
That seems counterproductive. It seems like that doesn't even make the money. This just seems like a level of contempt, like the nobility in the time of the French Revolution, when the rich people just trample on you thoughtlessly to where you really get annoyed.
Yeah, but I don't know. I'm not sure that it doesn't make them money because if they're getting federal, state, and local funds to
Oh,
build out infrastructure, but the infrastructure is never built, that's just
oh,
free money.
okay. So
And
they're reporting you as served
yeah,
by
there's
some
no
federal agency.
accountability there, so they're just getting our free tax dollars to do nothing.
Oh yeah, well that's a real old scam, like one I did when I was doing restitution for fraud, where these guys had a great scam. They would just offer to sell you paper and toner cheap, and then they would just never deliver anything and bill you. And that
Well, and there was another one like that where I worked in an office. It turned out they were delivering empty cartridges or ones that were 80% done, so it would work at first and
oh yeah,
stop after a few pages.
that's like the USB sticks that are just like a cord, a plug ending in nothing inside there. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. All right. Anyway, so the last one I want to mention is one problem with Mastodon, the new alternative to Twitter, which I moved to and the whole information security community has, is there's no search engine. You can only search on hashtags. And so for a while I was putting hashtags on all my posts, and then I noticed that literally nobody else is doing that. So I highly doubt the value of those hashtags. So I got bored and quit. And then two people said they're using the hashtags. And I said, I really don't think enough people are using the hashtags for this to work. But somebody made their own full text search, and it's an opt-in system because a lot of people are concerned about privacy. So you can go voluntarily put yourself on their full text search engine, and now you're searchable. So I did that, and I thought that was pretty interesting. So that may be a good answer as we grope in the open source community to try to figure out how to get the benefit out of social networking. One thing, you cannot quote tweet things, which in Mastodon, and the engagement seems really low lately. It was high like a month ago. Now, as far as I can tell, I'm not getting any reaction to most of what I post, but I'm sticking it out because I do get a lot of valuable information security news there. The actual interaction between people is very low, much less than Twitter, but maybe that's a feature and not a bug. It's back to just a news feed for me, which is really what I wanted.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not the most user friendly.
Well, I don't know. Actually, Twitter wasn't either. I mean,
Yeah.
Twitter was just a little more polished. But I mean, the main thing about Twitter is there were all these people there, but 99% of them were people that are like celebrities. And, now this is, I think, what it would be if you took the 1% of the technical people from Twitter and gave them their own service. But it really does have all the hot security news right at the top of my feed. That's working. So it fits the original purpose I had for Twitter. And in a way, people say, the other stuff, the social stuff you're doing on Twitter is probably unhealthy for you anyway, and you're better off without it. I'm waiting to see if that's true. That might be true. I mean, one summary I heard about this when he talked about Elon Musk firing people because his tweets aren't popular enough. They say he poured $45 billion just so people will read his tweets. They say what happened is he fed his Twitter addiction and cured all of us of ours.
That's pretty good.
That's one way to look at it. Anyway, all right. And oh, I see. Your last one is just more about the fake map. So
Yeah,
okay.
those were go together.
All right. Well, so I think that's it. That's it for this one, and we'll do another one on Tuesday.